Hi, welcome back to my channel, The Voices of Untold Truth. Sit back and enjoy the story.
My husband cheated on me, so I made sure he walked away with nothing. No house, no money, no future he could rely on. My name is Alina, and this isn't just a breakup story. This is the story of how betrayal met consequences, and how silence became my greatest weapon. Welcome back to my channel. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more real-life inspired stories about relationships, choices, and consequences. Now, let's get back to the story. My husband, Daniel Hart, always believed that silence meant agreement. When I didn't question his late nights, he assumed I trusted him. When I didn't ask about the unfamiliar charges, he assumed I didn't notice. When I stopped waiting up for him, he assumed I had grown used to being alone. What he never considered was that silence can also mean observation. For 2 years, our marriage had looked ordinary from the outside, a clean house in a quiet neighborhood, 2 professionals building life, no children yet. Daniel said we should enjoy success first. I agreed. I agreed to many things. That was Daniel's favorite thing about me. I never argued, never raised my voice, never created scenes. Daniel mistook my composure for weakness. About a year into the marriage, he met Chloe. She was everything I was not, loud, impulsive, constantly validating him. She laughed at his jokes too hard, touched his arm too often, admired his ambition without ever asking questions about it. With Chloe, Daniel felt important. With me, he felt ordinary. The affair started the way most affairs do, not with a decision but with small permissions, a drink after work, a message that lingered too long, a lie that felt harmless because it went unchallenged. Soon Daniel was living 2 lives, and he convinced himself he deserved both. What he didn't know was that I had already seen the shift long before I ever saw evidence. I noticed the new cologne before I noticed Chloe. I noticed how he angled his phone away from me. I noticed that he had started saying my money instead of our money. The confirmation came later, a financial notification Daniel had forgotten I also received. A transfer, then another, then a pattern. I sat at my desk that evening staring at the numbers. I didn't cry. I didn't call him. I didn't confront him. Instead, I opened a different folder, one Daniel had never once looked at, despite signing every document inside it. I work in compliance. Structure, ownership, authority. These are not abstract ideas to me. They are precise tools. Tools I had carefully arranged from the very beginning of our marriage, mostly because Daniel hated dealing with paperwork. Just put whatever makes sense, he had told me back then, signing forms while half watching television. I trust you. And I had made what made sense. At the time, it was meant to protect us both. Now, it would protect me alone. For 6 months, I said nothing about the affair. I continued making dinner, continued asking whether he'd be home late, continued listening to him talk about deals and projections and plans that no longer included me. Meanwhile, I reviewed everything, every account, every title, every clause Daniel had dismissed as legal language. Nothing was changed suddenly. That would have been suspicious. Instead, I moved carefully, methodically, always within the authority Daniel himself had granted me. If a signature was required, it was one I already had. If approval was needed, it had already been written into the structure years earlier. Daniel, believing himself the financially dominant one, never once realized he had signed operational control away simply because he didn't want the inconvenience of managing details. He thought he owned our life because he earned loudly. I had built our life quietly. and quiet things are often stronger. The confrontation Daniel imagined for months did not happen the way he expected. He didn't come home one day asking for a divorce. He didn't sit down for a difficult conversation. Instead, he decided to end things dramatically because drama, unlike responsibility, felt powerful. One afternoon, I heard the front door open while I was in the kitchen. 2 sets of footsteps entered. I dried my hands and walked into the living room. Daniel stood there, beside Chloe. Chloe looked slightly uncomfortable, but Daniel looked triumphant, as if he were finally stepping into honesty, finally claiming something he believed was rightfully his. "Elena," he said with rehearsed firmness, "we need to talk." My eyes moved from him to Chloe, then back to him. I understood immediately. And still, I felt no anger. "Okay," I said calmly. "Talk." Daniel seemed thrown off by the lack of reaction, but he pushed forward. "We'll handle the divorce quickly. I'll be fair. You'll get your share, obviously. But this house, my investments, those will stay with me. That's only logical." I looked at him for a long moment, not hurt, just studying him. Then I said something Daniel didn't understand at the time. "You should read things more carefully." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," I replied gently, "you should sit down with an attorney before deciding what belongs to you." He laughed. Actually, laughed. "I know what I own." I didn't respond, because there was nothing left to argue about. Daniel moved out that week. Confident, relieved, even excited. He told Chloe everything would be finalized soon. They began talking about trips, about upgrading, about the future that was now finally his. The first sign something was wrong came when he tried to move money. The account access didn't work. He assumed it was a technical error. Then another account returned the same message. Then another. He called the bank, irritated. By the end of the call, irritation had turned into confusion. By the next day, confusion turned into something colder. His attorney asked for documents. Daniel sent them casually, expecting confirmation. Instead, he was called into the office. The attorney's expression was careful, professional, concerned. "Daniel," he said, "did you review these agreements when you signed them?" Daniel shrugged. "Not line by line. My wife handled the structuring." The attorney slid the papers forward. "These structures place controlling ownership and operational authority with Elena." Daniel stared. "That's not possible." "It is," the attorney said quietly. "You authorized it." A long pause. The words didn't land all at once. They arrived slowly, like cracks spreading through glass. The house was not in Daniel's name. The primary accounts were not jointly controlled. The investment entities were managed solely by me under terms he had signed without reading. Everything he believed he had existed within frameworks he did not control, frameworks he had willingly approved. Daniel drove back to Chloe's apartment in silence. That night, she asked, "So when do we start moving your things?" Daniel sat down heavily. "I need to sort some paperwork first." Weeks passed. Then more questions, then fewer answers. Chloe's excitement faded into concern, concern into distance. She hadn't fallen in love with uncertainty. One morning, she packed a bag. "I didn't sign up for this," she told him. "I thought you had your life together." And just like that, she was gone too. Daniel finally called me, not angry, not proud, just undone. "You knew," he said when I answered. "Yes," I replied. "For how long?" "6 months before you brought her into the house." Daniel closed his eyes. "Why didn't you stop me?" "Because you were already making your decision. I just made mine." When the divorce finalized, there was nothing dramatic to divide. No courtroom battle, no shouting, just documents being acknowledged for what they already were. Daniel walked out with exactly what he had brought into the marriage, nothing more. And then, one evening, there was a knock at my door. Daniel stood there, not confident, not proud, just broken. "I made a mistake," he said. "Please, give me one more chance. We can fix this. I'll end everything. I'll do anything." For the first time, he looked at me like I was the one holding power. But this was never about revenge in the way people imagine. I didn't destroy his life. He dismantled it himself. I just refused to rebuild it for him. I told him calmly, "You didn't just betray me. You showed me exactly how little you valued what we built. And I don't return to places where respect is already gone." He cried. He apologized. He begged. But accountability sometimes looks like a closed door. I didn't slam it. I simply didn't reopen it. No second chance. He walked alone. Just the consequences of believing that loyalty is optional and attention is permanent. My life didn't collapse because I never built it around someone who could walk away from it so easily. And that's the part people misunderstand. This wasn't about taking everything from him. It was about finally keeping everything for myself. Before you go, I want to ask you something. If someone showed you who they really were, would you give them another chance, or would you finally believe them?